Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Dojo Live, connecting to tech experts like you. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Kim Lantis, joining you from one of Nearsoft's offices in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Co-hosting with me today are my fellow Nearsoftians, Sandra Vasquez, also in Hermosillo, as well as Carlos Ponce out of our Mexico City office. Hey!
Hi, Kim.
Hey, Kim.
Perfect. Hi, welcome, guys. Thank you. So, back in May, we had the pleasure of speaking with Steve Reynolds, who is the CEO and founder of a company called TRIPBAM. And today, it's our pleasure to speak with another member of the TRIPBAM family, and that is CTO Caleb Blanton. Hi, Caleb. Welcome to Dojo Live.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. You're welcome. It's our pleasure. So, to get us started, Caleb, please quickly just tell us a bit about yourself, your background.
Yeah, so I'm just a simple techie, nothing too fancy. Been living and breathing computers since I was very young. Travel tech for a couple dozen years.
Wow. You don't look that old.
Yeah, well, I got started in travel tech when I was 19 years old. So, it's been an interesting journey for sure. But yeah, actually, Steve and I, our paths have crossed multiple times. Once in '97 when he hired me at TTG as then a developer, but kind of worked my way up the chain there. And then he broke away, did his own thing. I broke away, did my own thing, and then, as great connections always do, we reconvened and we invented TRIPBAM together. So it's been quite a journey in travel tech, and those our destinies have been intertwined. Reynolds and I. So yeah, that's in the context of this talk, that's probably a good enough summary.
Perfect. So for those of our viewers who may not have yet watched Steve's episode, can you please quickly just share with us a bit about TRIPBAM, what it is that you do?
Okay. So, the hotel booking space is super crowded and super congested. And, everyone's like, okay, what about Trivago? What about hotels.com? When I tell them what our company does. And I think a key concept to differentiate TRIPBAM from those other booking tools is we're not a booking site, we're a shopping service. So instead of you coming to our site and saying, I want to book this hotel on these dates, you get the rates for that time in place in the world and universe, and then you're done. You check in, right? We actually after you've booked your reservation, we actually reshop it and look for a better rate on a daily basis, because something people don't really know is that hotel rates, they change constantly. Hotels are doing what's called yield management. So they're dealing with the inventory that they have available at the hotel, and they're fluctuating rates to try to garner more bookings, more room nights, things like that. I'm very focused on something called ADR. So what we do is we kind of leverage that by shopping on a daily basis and waiting for those rate drops. And when that rate drop happens, we snag it up and we reserve it while it's there. So we are saving clients a significant amount of money with that. And at the time we came out, it was a very new niche of the travel industry, which is kind of hard to find these days.
Yes, it is. Very cool. So one quick question before we move on to your chosen topic for today. When you say snag it up, is that something that a service that TRIPBAM automatically does, or is there the need to confirm that with the client's reservation?
So we started as a B2C offering where any traveler, and we still have a consumer site. So if you have a trip and you've already booked it, as long as you booked a flexible rate, you can plug in your rate, say, I want you to beat it by X, and shop daily for me and see if you can beat it, challenge us, right? That's where we kind of started on the B2C front. But a handful of years ago, we pivoted over to B2B. Now, in B2C, you provide the information to us, forward a confirmation email, that type of deal. But on the B2B side, on the corporate travel side, we gather the data either through the incumbent agency or through the company themselves, and they integrate with our API to send us the travel data to reshop to improve. And we don't only reshop, we also do what's called attachment, where if you have an overnight stay in a city and we don't see a hotel, we'll offer up a hotel in that area according to your company preferences, saying, hey, you know, we see you don't have a hotel booked yet. Here's a good hotel. So we'll offer up those kind of opportunities as well. But yeah, you know, the data capture is kind of that phase of the product, and that happens, you know, differently depending on the platform, right, that you're on.
But I imagine it's very time sensitive because those rates aren't going to stay that way for long, presumably.
Yeah, on average, 2 to 4 weeks ahead of check-in is when is when on the corporate side, you know, the bookings are made. So that gives us 2 to 4 weeks to find a better rate.
Okay.
You know,
it's quite a window.
Yeah.
So let's go to your chosen topic. Your chosen topic today is bridging the technology gap between leisure and corporate. So our question for you is, first, please tell us why you chose this topic. Of course, my question is for you to explain why that bridge is even necessary. And then, of course, how do we go ahead and do that?
Well, you know, it's a little bit of a generalization, right? That there is a gap because technology is technology. Everyone does it differently. But there is a sort of a big difference in the tech that you'll find on the corporate travel side and the leisure side, right? Leisure have very mature mobile offerings. They're, you know, very personalized travel experiences. You know, look at the Expedias of the world. And they've been doing this for quite a while. Corporate travel is a little bit different because there's a lot of incumbents in this agencies, incumbent travel agencies, incumbent GDSs, and a lot of them want to do tech, but they're not necessarily technology companies. They're either travel agencies or banks. If you know some of the top, you know, travel agencies, you'll know who I'm talking about there. And you know, and technology, especially in this space, is not necessarily a core competency. And so you have some of that that is a barrier to you know, to bleeding edge tech and, you know, not necessarily agile small companies. And it's the point of entry is a little bit difficult in this industry. It's a messy business we're in because you know, really specifically hotels, it's a very fragmented industry, and you have, you know, minimum wage, you know, hotel desk workers that are punching in rate data and hotel information, and it's all, a lot of it's free form, and that free form problem just trickles down. You know, we all know what rolls downhill, right? So ultimately it's a challenge, and again, it's a heavily you know, a lot of incumbents in this industry that you know, they can bypass a lot of those challenges because they have the data, right? And they've been dealing with it for numerous years. So that's kind of step one. But then taking it the next step and building a really good, you know, technology offering, that's step two, and that ends up being a challenge for the industry. So there's always been a gap between the industry, and there's always a lot of opinions about how to bridge that gap. And you know, like most questions, the answer is it depends, right? Depending on, you know, everything, right? The demographic and everything else. But yeah, I think it's a challenge, and it's still something that we're struggling with, you know.
So how do you go about it, or how have you gone about it in your experience bridging that gap?
Well, you know, I think part of it is coming to terms with the nature of technology today. Technology used to be very much from A to Z, you've got to build it yourself, right? You know, you take whatever experience you happen to have, you know, along the way, building all these little pieces and parts to put together a product, right? But you're not necessarily an expert in 9 out of 10 of those things, you know? You're only an expert in one of those things. And so what ends up being produced is a sort of a substandard product. And today's world of technology is all about microservices and very atomic things that have already been done, building blocks that have already been done, and methodologies that allow you to leverage those microservices and atomic components to really deliver effectively in technology. And so that, I think that step one is really coming to terms with the landscape today. It's microservices, it's, you know, software as a service, it's cloud tech, containment tech is kind of a new thing, like Docker and those types of things, that to really facilitate that agility that's needed in the market. You've got to be agile, and that's something that's really tough for a very large, to doing things a certain way, to be very agile and to be able to you know, to make changes and pivot very quickly. So that's kind of challenge number one. I would say another challenge is just the subject matter expertise that's needed. I talked about that point, that barrier of entry. You need to understand this industry. You need to know the headaches and the pain points in order to address them, right? And it's tough to find high tech folks with travel tech experience, especially corporate travel tech. So that becomes, but it's so valuable when you do find somebody that you're willing to make compromises on some of the other subject matter expertise, like general software design and architecture, you know, experience with some of that newer technology like cloud technologies, the Azure, the Amazon Web, the AWS, all that stuff. You know, it's tough to find that combination, right? So talent is a challenge, I think, as well. So and I could go on and on listing the challenges, you know, but yeah, that I think that touches on the top things, other than just sort of the messiness of the data that we're dealing with. It's so messy and free form, you know. So
I like that you threw that out there. A valuable prospect for the high tech individuals out there would then be to make yourself an expert in what is the travel industry. You said it's very valuable, and there aren't very many of you. So your Softians listening to this. No, and and one thing I think we can assume for sure is the travel industry isn't going anywhere.
No,
right?
no,
it's
not.
from my understanding, it's a very stable industry.
Well, yeah, you know,
yes, it has ups and downs, but compared to others, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, technologists such as myself, I'd like to see some shakeup. You know, TRIPBAM sort of disruptive technology, and there's a lot of layers in at least on the corporate travel side that I think as technology evolves become a little bit unnecessary. But that people have been talking about, you know, GDSs are going to go away, you know, 15 years ago, and they're still around, you know, even though they're still running on mainframes, you know, they're still around. There's some old tech out there, and it's sort of a hybrid. It's a mishmash of new and old tech. You still got XML web services. Maybe some of the newer ones have REST APIs, but it's sort of chaotic.
So you as a tech expert, do you appreciate that? Are you frustrated by that? Is it a challenge for you? Like, what's your personal feel on that?
It spells opportunity. You know, when there's a fragmented or kind of chaotic industry, there is a plethora of pain points to choose from. And yes, I do know what a plethora means. Sorry, I had to have a Three Amigos quote in here. But you know, there's so many pain points that are a result of all these issues and challenges that we have, and you know, and so it narrows the funnel, so to speak, of the types of people that can solve these problems, and therefore it's you know, congestion market's hard to penetrate, and here there's opportunity, right? There's a lot to be done and a lot of opportunity to improve, a lot of room. So that's the way I see it. I'm a problem solver. Deep down inside, you know, I like creating things and I like solving problems. Hopefully I'm not creating trouble, but I certainly love to solve problems, and there are plenty of those. So that's the way I see that.
I like it. The challenge. Perfect. So Sandra, what questions do you have for Caleb?
Yeah, Caleb, not that you were talking about all the challenges that the travel industry has. What I see is that there are a lot of challenges worth solving and worth exploring. And I see that there's a lot of different, we live in a really unique era. Like we have access to a lot of things that our previous generation didn't have.
Mhm.
And we are changing, and in the technology is actually shaping the way we do things. Like we look for things differently, we search for information differently, and I believe we travel differently. And I was wondering, what are the changes that you see that technology had made on users in general that are affecting travel? Or what are these big trends that you can identify?
Yeah, I think one important trend to talk about is personalization. With more information, you have more of an ability to make better decisions that are specific to a traveler. And you take medicine as an example. That's a trend that's happening in medicine as well, with the technology and all the data that's in play, and the ability to process that data in real time much better, because this exponential growth of the eventually, I mean, we're gonna hit a ceiling for the transistor, right? But hey, quantum computing's around the corner, so we're good there. So there's going to be this exponential processing power. So personalized medicine is becoming very important, because everybody's body chemistry is different, and it all reacts differently to drugs and things like that. And in much the same way, personalized travel, I think, is bubbling up. It knows my schedule, my personal schedule, who I'm seeing. It can, when I book something, it's sort of front to end. It can tell me, hey, make suggestions about restaurants, and there's a lot of opportunity there. Obviously, everyone throws this term cloud around like it's like they're giving away candy, and half the people know what it means, and the other half just sort of use it because the other half's using it. But it is becoming very important to leverage cloud tech for mainly for agility and for scalability, and that's a trend that I think is just a fundamental prerequisite to support some of these other more innovative solutions. You've got basically, to compete, you've got to leverage cloud tech. But yeah, I think in general for travelers, right, to your point, the way we travel is different. There's a lot more choices. And with those extra choices, like Airbnb versus hotels versus VRBO versus whatever, right? The booking tool that my company wants me to use versus the website because I have points at Marriott. I want to go book, and bypass company policy. All these choices and all this, um, this access that a traveler has now that they didn't have before, right? Oh, you had to call a travel agent, right? You couldn't go online and just book whatever you want. So that is changing the way we travel, and I think we can't fight. Companies that try to fight that trend and push against the traveler wanting to be independent are going to fail. I think they have to embrace that disparate, the sort of the all the different technologies that we have today, and they need to embrace that and kind of go with the flow and figure out, well, how can we? I think a big thing on the corporate travel side is duty of care, and it's the companies need to track where their travelers are at all times from a safety and security perspective. And that's the angle, I think, that you can take to bring some of these out-of-channel bookings where they went to Marriott.com instead of the corporate travel booking tool, bring those into channel, right? Because because it's the company's responsibility to know where you are, that kind of thing. So that's an example of where you would go with the flow instead of go against the flow, saying, oh, let's punish them for not booking in the corporate travel tool, that kind of thing. So to your point, people are changing. The tech is out there. Everything's at your fingertips. And I think the key is that technology companies, especially in this industry, kind of leverage that, because there's a lot of power in that to be leveraged, instead of consider it a problem. It's an opportunity. Am I overly optimistic? I see everything as an opportunity. So I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry.
Okay, there's one little thing here I'd like to interrupt for 1 second, just to remind the audience that if you're watching either now or at a later time, you can send us your questions for Caleb right here on Twitter at dojo.live, or email It's right here at dojo.live@nearsoft.com. So whichever works for you, send them over, and we'll make sure that Caleb gets them, and of course he responds at his convenience, and we'll go from there. With that being said, back to you, Sandra. I know you have a whole bunch of great questions, so go ahead and shoot.
Sorry, I was on mute. Well,
right.
it definitely answered my question. I agree with you. Like, in an industry, when the people who is optimistic and see all the challenges as an advantage are the ones who are innovating on things. And talking about technology and going into the same line, lately we have seen a lot of new technologies changing or shaping the way we travel, from chatbots to virtual reality. And these are some examples of what is promising in the future. I don't think we are there yet to substitute travel with virtual reality, but definitely there is something going on over there. And the same thing with chatbots. For you, what are you excited to see in the next 10 years related to technology and how it will change how we travel right now?
It's a good question. I'd like to see, I'd like to see some of these historic issues with travel be solved. The data that's coming into the funnel be cleaner. Technology, there's a lot of old deprecated, central reservation systems at the hotels, specifically in the hotel industry. That's sort of the root cause, and we're spinning our wheels trying to, to deal with the symptoms of that problem. And that's less of an exciting sort of, oh, wow, that's real exciting. But once you have that quality of data, right, and this, the better data coming in, it's garbage
It'd be
in,
really
garbage
exciting
out
for the person who figures it out.
yeah, it's going to be tough. It's a
Life-changing.
fragmented industry.
You're a hero.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, and right now the heroes are the ones who can work around the issue, and I'm more of a root cause analysis type guy. But you mentioned VR, and right now it's sort of pie in the sky. Ultimately it's interesting, and it has a long way to go. But I do think you'll see some of that. It's more going to be cool for demos, but not real practical. I think the best technologies are the invisible ones, the ones that you don't even see. It's just you behave the way you act, the way you want to act, and the technology is transparent until you need it. And so that I think touches on personalization. I think while I need to be in control of my personal data when I do release it to a technology, right? Like, think of you download an app on an app store and you say, yes, you can access my location. Yes, you can access my contacts. Once I've released that, I want that information to be leveraged to enhance my experience. And I think that's going to happen a lot more in travel, where you're going to say, yes, you can access my calendar, and the technology under the hood will be able to make more intelligent decisions. I think it blows my mind that you still have to say, when you're booking a trip on a corporate travel booking tool or a regular booking tool, that you can't really just say, this is my address and I want you, this is where I'm going, not this is the hotel I want, the air I want, or whatever. This is where I'm going. Everything around my itinerary needs to be built around that. This is where my meeting is, or this is where my family is. This is where, we haven't gone enough. Obviously, people, there's that's scattered around, but we haven't gone far enough to really leverage that idea of, I want to give you an address, you geolocate that, and everything you suggest and give me is around that address. And from the best flights, which airport do I fly into? Love Field? Do I fly into DFW? Which restaurants? Which everything, which hotels, which car rental facilities are the best for my trip. So that sort of bringing your itinerary all together and leveraging big data to be intelligent from a technology perspective is, I think, something that's going to happen a lot more. And that gets down into personalization, which is something I talked about before. So those are a couple of things. I think VR is right now is a buzzword, but I've got my eye on it. I've got some cool ideas about VR, specifically in the live music kind of side of things, and curious to see where that tech's going to go, but it's not really matured yet. So, which means easy market to penetrate, right? So.
Which leads me into the question that I have is actually, as Sandra and I were having this conversation before we went on the air, and we're talking about the new technologies. And you, as a technologist, technology. You mentioned virtual reality. These new technologies are kind of changing the way we travel and we experience the travel. So, what travel technology are you personally, let's say, excited to see evolve within the next few years, 5-10 years from now?
Specific travel technology such as VR, like another example of that, is it what you're talking about?
From chatbots, VR, whatever, any technology that you are personally excited to see evolve in the next few years. Could be anything, that's something that enthuses you and say, hey, I'd like to even partake on this because this is where we're heading in travel tech. So can you tell us a little bit about if there's such a thing?
Yeah, I think it comes back down to the amount of data that we have now, and finding new and creative ways to utilize that data. So big data is a really great example. And, once you're able to have access to that, instead of just that little atomic thing that your booking tool or your hotel site did, if you have access to all of the data and it's all very clean, there's a lot you can do. Again, I think it's personalization is sort of the next thing you're going to see a lot more in travel. You have a bunch of atomic functions, right? I have, an Uber app for this, and there's an app for that, right? But I think so the world has gotten a little bit complicated because of all the data and all the services and technologies out there. So I think what needs to happen to make the experience a little more seamless, and again, good technology is transparent, right? Really good technology is transparent. So bringing all of that together into one sort of unified experience, and voice rec from being able to talk to your unmentioned Amazon, hardware, or your unmentioned Google hardware. I'm not plugging, but being able to talk to those and book itineraries, for instance. You talked about chatbots. Slack is a big, a really big kind of internal team collaboration tool that has come up, and it's become so popular. Microsoft had to respond with Microsoft Teams, and so ultimately, chatbots and being able to just talk to the computer and do things. If this then that, right? I want to say this to my Echo or whatever, right? And I want an itinerary to be built kind of based on a simple phrase. There's a lot of work behind that. But that gets into some of the things Microsoft's working on alongside with cognitive services. Microsoft has a lot of cool technology that they're building around cognitive services, voice recognition. AI is a big one. So I think it's about, now that we have all the data, what do we do with it? And if you're a good technology, you make things simpler. You make things transparent. So, I think if I was to throw a buzzword out there just for a quote, I would say, AI, cognitive services, voice recognition, that stuff's going to play a big role.
Thank you so much, Caleb. And actually, there's something that I got to say right now and in public. And I got a question from the audience, actually. And this is, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you're feeling. How is it? The question is, how is it given this interview on your birthday? And this question came from your sister, Sarah.
Aww.
So, well, what better birthday present than to talk about yourself, right? No, I'm kidding. Okay.
I didn't know happy birthday.
Thank you.
I didn't know either. I mean, the question just came in. So thank you, Sarah, if you're watching. Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah. Wait, is it Sarah?
Sarah, yes,
Sarah Chappelle. Okay,
like,
that's
which
my
sister?
Yeah, well, I got an email, and it's signed by his sister, Sarah. So I assume
there you
it's
go.
your sister.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
got you. Yeah,
Congratulations.
and, actually, next week, now that we're getting personal next week. Next Tuesday, I'm actually having a daughter. We have a daughter on the way, so it's a big week for us.
Tuesday for sure.
Cool.
Tuesday for sure. Yeah, it's scheduled. So
Nice. Well,
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
going
Yeah.
on. So here I am doing my math. I'm like 19 years old. You started to
There
20.
you go.
I think Kim is trying to date you, so she's.
Don't worry, I'm the
You
same.
might want to rephrase that. She's married, right?
No, wait a minute. Hold on a
No,
second.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
You dated yourself, okay? When at the beginning of the conversation. Okay, of course, we're just kidding, Kim. So anyway, so here's the thing. Let's see, how much time do we have? Yeah, we still have a good 20 minutes before we actually 15 minutes before we wrap up. So let's take advantage of that. So Kim.
Yeah, like Caleb, I was thinking a lot of what you were having to say of like what you look forward to in the next 10 years. It actually reminded me a lot of a talk we had with Bob Offit. I don't know if you know who Bob is or have heard of him. He's a senior tech analyst for Focusrite and has many years working in the travel industry. And I can't remember exactly how he had laid it out, but he actually mentioned, I think, about 5 steps within like the travel process. And one of those first steps I remember very well was the dream phase, which I liked how you were like, well, I'm going to this place, and the idea of technology dreaming for you, because I think sometimes our knowledge limits our dreams, just not even knowing what's available, and then to be able to provide that dream, I think is really fascinating. And you guys kind of coincided on a lot of different things. Also, his idea of like what would be great is if technology could bring this all together. The idea of the hotels and the car rentals and the flights. Sure, you can buy packages, but I think the back end of that is not all on the same page. I think for a user like me, I'm like, oh, look, I can now rent my car too. I don't know what that looks like on the back end, but he was definitely talking about like that marrying of the technologies. So it's interesting, you being so young and him being so seasoned that you're on the same page. So you must be on to something.
Yeah, I that resonates with me. Think of it this way: if you could just say, Echo, I'm traveling to, this address. Send me options. It could you could get an email a couple minutes later if you wanted to drive because it's within a certain mile threshold. Here's a road trip itinerary for you. If you wanted to fly, but all you had to do was say, "I'm going here," right? So while we're dreaming, let's talk about how cool that would be, right? Again, technology being very transparent, very natural, and that's why I don't know if you know, but that. This Amazon technology and these Google technologies, they actually hook into these services I've been talking about, these cloud services like If This Then That, and some of those things where you can actually kind of, automate your life, kind of biohacking, but there's still a little bit of a hurdle there because it's a little bit, even though it's really simple, a lot of people don't know it's there. To your point, that if you don't know what you don't know, and also how to glue it all together. And over time, I think all that onus will not be on you anymore. It'll just be a simple, natural, this is where I'm going. And your dreams come true, right? To your point.
And I think coming in the idea of VR or chatbots or any of those things that can actually help us humanize that suggestion or that experience is going to be really important.
Yes.
I mean, right now, I'm not the biggest traveler. I wish I was. I love to travel, but certain life limitations don't let that be a possibility. But like right now, it always seems kind of cold, ad-like, even somewhat intrusive, So it's like, would you like to add a rental car? Or suddenly you have booked a flight to go somewhere, and now in your Gmail or wherever, Facebook, you're seeing, different types of ads for a museum that's in the city that you're traveling to or something. So there's these like hints and this like stalker likeness, I don't know, which I suppose works to a certain degree, but
not if it doesn't add value.
yes, and so like I think the idea there is making it more human, like
Yes.
to hide that, like so it doesn't feel so invasive.
You're noticing the technology. You shouldn't notice good technology. It's
Right.
making itself, its presence too aware to you, and you should just be. It should, to your point, it should be human. We are humans after all, and
Or
that's
you search for I know this isn't travel, but a baby car seat or something, and then suddenly everywhere you go on your email on your Facebook, there's this
yeah,
ad of like that same stinking car seat, and you're like,
right. Like,
"Ew."
when are advertisers gonna know that I actually freaking bought the product? Because I don't want to buy it anymore.
That too.
That's important. They need to crack that nut. That's another problem. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna try to solve that. No, it's annoying. It's Big Brother, kind of like I'm being watched. I shouldn't know I'm being watched, even though I know I'm being watched. If that makes sense.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yes, ignorance is bliss. So you're exactly right. I think today there's a bunch of disparate technologies, and technology is too present in our lives. Good technology,
But now we're getting on
is
like 1984.
yeah, that's true. What is this? Brazil. There's a series of tubes that we communicate with. Oh wait, no. That's yeah, no. So I think you're right. You're exactly right. It's not human enough. Technology is not human enough, and travels are really. I mean, the human is involved directly with travel, and that's the difference with travel, is that you don't have many layers of abstractions. So there's a lot of opportunity to humanize travel for sure.
And the
That
technology
comes
there,
into personalization and into intelligent offerings, things like that. So
because travel is a really interesting one, because there's this always going to be this merge, this marrying of the technology with actual human beings. I mean, wherever you go within travel, you will come in contact with service
mhm.
providers, people who receive you at the hotel, massage, masseuse, or restaurants. Like there's always going to be that human to human contact, and you expect that human nature is always going to be prevalent in travel. So yeah, I
Mhm.
think of anything of the technology areas, it's one of the first places where we should attempt to humanize our technology.
Yeah, and that humanization is still up for grabs. I mean, leisure versus corporate travel. I think there's a lot of forerunning going on with leisure, but a lot of people travel for business. So there, that one company that can really kind of take that next big progression into the humanization of travel, and will be able to bridge that gap. And I don't say I don't want to imply that that's exclusively in the they have bigger budgets and they have bigger teams on the leisure side, but that's not, and it's simply because they have a bigger TAMS, right? I mean, their addressable market is huge, um, but that's it's about that, that Zuckerberg that's
Mhm.
is sitting in a room trying to solve a problem, so that opportunity to take that leap forward, that next leap forward in travel is up for grabs, and we have the data, we have the tools, right? We have the technology, so
Yeah,
it's
or that
about having the
extension of corporate into leisure. I know
yeah.
that a lot of times people take advantage of the fact that they are needing to go somewhere for their jobs, and then piggyback on that with their vacation time.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
so how that can merge.
Yeah, and see, one of the things TripBAM does is try to separate the two. A lot of people, they want to have their vacation at the hotel in the suite, and but on a company dime. See, that's where we're like, well, what about this one that saves your company $2,000? How about that idea for a change? And then they'll be able to give you a bonus at the end of the year so that you can take the family vacation. It's
Right.
so
Is that
yeah,
something that, like, how do you campaign for that? Or how do
it's
you
tough.
influence that, the idea of what's good for everyone is good for me?
It's tough, and I've always been a little bit dumbfounded about even if you're working for a big company, how disconnected people are from the bottom line. Um, you know, uh, yes, this company is sort of an abstraction layer. So, you have to kind of think relatively in terms of budget and things like that. 10,000 sounds like a lot to me, but 10 grand for a company may not be a lot of money. That type of thing. But that's dangerous, and I think travelers and really employees in general, the ones that are thinking about the bottom line are thinking about opportunities to improve the bottom line, revenue opportunities, things like that. The ones that are disconnected from that are probably overspending and underutilizing strategic kind of opportunities. So, and you know, in our world, that manifests itself in an interesting way. I mean, different company cultures are really sensitive. Some company cultures are super sensitive about pissing off their travelers, you know, and they don't want, you know, the travel managers are tiptoeing around them, and others are just like, no, just let me make the decision for them. I'll decide what hotel they're staying at, you know, and you know, I think there's a happy medium between the two, I think, where the travelers can get what they want and the companies can get what they want. And I think that's the balancing act that we're trying to play at TRIPBAM. But yeah, human nature is both a blessing and a curse, right?
That it
Let me
is.
just read the news.
Cool. So let me just interrupt for one more time. Just one more quick reminder to send your questions on Twitter at Dojo Live right here, and also Dojo Live at nearsoft.com, whichever works for you. With that being said, we have about 10 more minutes, a little bit less than 10 more minutes before we wrap up. So, Sandra, I understand you had one more question. So, if you want to go ahead, now's the time.
I believe it was Kim's question.
Oh, well, it kind of goes in line with this idea of, you were saying, companies, you know, the traveler's needs with the company needs. I did see that in your bio, Caleb, you had mentioned that one of your key strengths is matching the business needs of the client to those of the stakeholders, which is similar, I think. So how did you find how to strike that balance? Is we have our business developer here with us.
Well, you know, finding that mix of being savvy in technology, sort of that came through osmosis in my life. I've been around it a while. I'm not afraid, and that becomes, I think, the biggest barrier to learning anything is fear. To quote Dune, fear is the mind killer. Okay, and now you know I'm a legit nerd when I'm quoting Dune, but
That's right. You started out with the Three Amigos. So I don't know
that's
if
true.
this
That's
is,
true.
are
Yeah. So it's a
you
mix, right? It's bridging the gap. You got total nerd, and then you've got applicable to the regular humans.
pop culture?
Right. Yeah. Uh, but being familiar with, you know, with technology and being able to talk to upper level management, to an executive, or to be an executive, you know, you know, having both skill sets allows you to very quickly, because, you know, companies have to pivot a lot, you know, in this space. And the question is, how expensive is it to pivot? And when you have somebody who's familiar with both sides, there's a lot less, you know, scrambling, so to speak, that happens when you do have to make those moves. And so I feel like that's the key strength that I bring as a person, you know, a problem solver and sort of a creative thinker, is being able to sort of talk to the executive level as well as the technical level and bridge that gap. And in doing so, you're able to identify those opportunities. Hey, we have all these moving parts over here, all this technology over here. Why don't we do this? Because I understand there's a business need. Here's our revenue stream, right? Here's our balance sheet. Here's our financial model. And I realized that, oh yeah, these three things can be combined to create a whole new revenue stream for the business, right? You don't have your traditional developers aren't thinking that way. They're thinking, okay, functionally, how am I going to build this piece of software, and how am I going to solve this particular technical problem? And when you have somebody who's a technologist who's thinking from a business perspective, that equals power, that equals money. And those are usually negative connotation, but in the world of business, that's good stuff, all good stuff, right? Champagne problems. So
And then it doesn't matter how good something is if it's not solving the real problem, and if it's not making money, then there is no business to move around.
Yeah, you're bringing a solution to a problem. I keep telling my wife, I don't like to go to a list with the store. I like to go to a store with the list. And what I mean by that is, give me a damn shopping list, because first of all, I want to know what the problems are that need to be solved. But, you know, if you end up going to a list with a store, you end up buying a bunch of crap you don't need.
Yeah.
You know?
Or if you go to the grocery store when you're hungry.
Yeah, that too. Yes, that's true. That's a good point. Fair point.
It's
I
kind
don't
of
know
the
how that metaphorically ties in, but that is very important. That is a
same.
very
It's kind of
important
the
tip.
same thing.
It kind of is. Yeah.
Go ill prepared, and you end up.
Yeah. Yeah. Just impulse buying everything. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, I think for that, Caleb, we're actually coming to the close of our time together today. For our part, we wish you a very, very happy birthday.
Thank you.
And of course, best of luck with your new edition next
Yeah.
week. And for you, any final closing words you have for our viewers today?
No, just keep your eye on TRIPBAM. We're an up and comer. We're pretty excited about our technology and the amount of money we're saving corporations all over the world these days. So we're always looking for talent and looking for those opportunities. So yeah, just a shameless plug for our company there.
No
That's
shame
all.
at all.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
That's right.
Exactly.
Clap.
Perfect. And that is at tripbam.com or how?
TRIPBAM.com. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, congratulations to you. And
Thanks.
thank you for your time today, Caleb.
It
Sandra,
was wonderful to
Carlos.
meet you guys.
Thank you again, Caleb. Yes, and I'd like to remind the audience that keep an eye on today's episode. It's going to be on our website, dojo.nearself.com. It's going to be right there where you can actually watch it at a later time and, of course, find out the relevant contact info for TRIPBAM and, of course, for Caleb. So with that being said,
view Steve's talk as well.
Yeah. If you want to follow the trail of Dojo Live stalking TRIPBAM, we start with Chris Hemsworth, okay, from Thayer Ventures, and then we go to Steve Reynolds, and then we go to me. So they've been kind of working their way top down.
That's
for the record, I do remember that time with Chris Hameter. That was way back in November for the
great talk. Yeah, that's a similar talk he gives at Cornell and everything else, and it's a great talk if you're interested in creating a company and getting investment. He lays
we're
out.
really excited about travel and where the industry is going. So we need to follow the best.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, we appreciate that.
All right. So, for me, my takeaway from this is one of the best phrases that I ever heard is, "I don't want to go to the list with a store. I want to go to the store with a list."
Yes.
Cool. So, thank you, Caleb, again. So, thank you so much, and we're going to be in touch with with this conversation, which is going to be embedded onto our website, as I said. And again, thank you so much.
All
We're
right.
grateful for having had you here, and we appreciate your willingness to participate in today's episode of Dojo Live.
Thank you.
That's right.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye,
Goodbye,
everyone.
everybody. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.